Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at how my free hit did and what my game week 31 wildcard is shaping up like for the quick turnaround in game week 33 and in order to bench boost in game week 34. Now to timestamp this, I'm recording on 24th of April in 2 p.m. New Zealand time. It's about 1 or 2 a.m. over in the UK. The complete round of game week 32 is completed. We've come off the free hit with a score of 75, average of 42 points, so it's a pretty decent green arrow for most free hitters this week. And we'll just jump straight into it and go through the free hit team. I didn't go into it in too much detail in the last video because I think most free hit teams are very similarly structured, and a lot of the content creators were going to be obviously covering that in a lot of detail, whereas I was a bit more busy dealing with the wildcard a little bit earlier. So this team didn't actually change pretty much at all. The only difference is I switched out Ben Rama for Bowen as a last minute trade, and in order to do that I sold Trippier, who was on my bench. I wasn't planning on playing Trippier in this match. I just held him there until the deadline was around, so that if I was going to sell him, well, I didn't want to sell him earlier in the week, lose all the value in him, and then decide that I actually did want him back and not be able to purchase him because of the loss of value. So those are the only changes really to the team, and of course my bench. My bench has done extremely well. We've got 28 points on the bench. Everson with 2, he was just a blank keeper that wasn't going to play. Andreas first spot with 10 points, Gahey second spot with 6 points, and Castagna third spot on my bench with 10. But that's not really, I mean, those are just there in case anyone got injured in the warm-up. Pretty much everyone in the squad was a starting member that isn't really too prone to rotation. So to read it out, Johnston in net, who kept the clean sheet in one of only 3 teams who actually managed to keep a clean in game week 32. So the Crystal Palace Everton game was 0-0, and West Ham beat Bournemouth 4-0. Every other team scored. So we did manage to nab one of the clean sheets there, and Johnston did manage to pull out the 3 bonus points, taking him through to a double figure return. Across the back line, all 3 of my defenders conceded in their respective games, but they all picked up an assist, which is great going. Very happy with that. We had Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, and Ben White with 4 points, 5 points, and 4 points respectively. Across the middle of the pitch, we went with Bowen, as I've already mentioned, who picked up the assist for the 4th goal in the 4-0 win against Bournemouth for, was it 4-0? He got a really weird looking scorpion kick very late in the match. We'll take the assist, it was great. The 2 Arsenal midfielders that I went with was Martinelli and Saka, who both did very well, scoring 9 and 13 points respectively. Salah, the man in the middle of the pitch, with 7 points doubled through to 14 for the captaincy. Up front, we had Solanke, one of my only 2 blankers in the team, Kane. So I went with a big, I suppose, EO play here, where I thought Spurs would probably score in the Newcastle fixture. I imagined most people would be playing Trippier. I decided I wanted to go against Trippier to try and get a little bit of rank gain there, and I thought most free hitters would probably sell Harry Kane, so I decided to keep him in. He scored the only goal in a 6-1 demolition by Newcastle. I've never seen a game like that. I don't know what Spurs is up to defensively. Even Perisic just does not know how to defend at all. Neither does Porro, seemingly, on the other side. So they're basically playing with 2 centre-backs. Newcastle, to be fair, attacked pretty well. They were shooting on target and just everything was just going in. It was crazy scenes. Super stoked to see Harry Kane get the goal though and spoil the clean sheet for Newcastle, who a lot of managers ended up going with. So 75 points with an average of 42. Decent green arrow. We're pretty happy about that. But let's move on to more pressing matters. So I wildcarded in game week 31. The plan was originally to go in 33, but we pulled it forward a couple of game weeks early to jump on that Leeds fixture and to take care of some issues that were floating about in my team. And this is the team that I have ended up with. I have currently, so this is my bus team. I set this up when the game week started. I haven't really changed anything since. The captaincy decision hasn't been made yet. My initial thoughts are Salah. I think I might even still be going there. We'll talk about captaincy in a second, but this is my bus team. I've got Steele and Net, who picked up a slight niggle just before the game week 31 game was played, so I brought him in on my wild card. He then sat out the 31 fixture with what was noted as a slight knock or a slight injury. He then also didn't make it onto the pitch for the FA Cup semi-final against Manchester United this morning, where Sanchez played instead, and Sanchez actually had a pretty good game. He did make some pretty clutch saves in that fixture, and so I am sitting here relatively nervous holding on to Steele. Obviously, the goalkeeper is a very key spot for the bench boost in game week 34. I am really hoping it was just a knock that kept him out of both games, and considering that it was a semi-final in the FA Cup, that De Zerbi didn't want to risk anything if he wasn't quite ready yet. But for Sanchez to play those two games and look pretty good in the second game, I am a little bit nervous, but Nottingham Forest away would be a good fixture for Steele to come back if he is fit and ready. If Steele misses out in this fixture, I've got a massive headache for game week 34. I do not know what I'm going to do yet, but that decision doesn't have to be made. My early thoughts are I may have to sell Harry Kane. So in the squad, I've currently got, I left 0.6 million in the bank in order to upgrade Martinelli to Rashford. That was exact funds. Rashford has dropped a little bit of price, and I think Martinelli I may have got an extra 0.1 million price rise, so I do have 0.2 million sitting in the bank, but I am running right up to the limits of funds for this team, so we will wait and see. So Steele is currently starting against Nottingham Forest away, and we have benched De Gea. Across the back line, I've got Trippier and Botman both starting away to Everton. Now, having watched the Crystal Palace vs Everton fixture, my notes for that match were to put Everton down as a good opponent for defenders to be playing against. So 3 teams in that list currently is Everton, Nottingham Forest and Wolves. So if any of your defenders are coming up against those teams, it is looking a bit more assured or a bit more likely that you may pick up your clean sheets there. So I'm more than happy to play the 2 Newcastle defenders there. One of my differentials was to go for Kanate in the Liverpool backline and completely swerve Trent Alexander-Arnold. This is mainly due to the fact that I wanted to go with 3 premiums on my wildcard, and in order to do that you do have to scrimp and save around the team. I would love to hold on to these 3 premiums for the remainder of the season, as that was the plan, but I do have a couple of niggling issues that have cropped up over the last 2 weeks leading into the bench boost next week, which may mean that I might have to sell Harry Kane in order to deal with some other issues, but we'll go through that a little bit later. So Kanate is still starting. He's away to West Ham. And the 2 defenders that I have on the bench is Nathan Ake, who has picked up a knock, missed out the game in 31, which I brought him in for against Leicester away. He's currently down with a hamstring injury, a 50% chance of playing. If he is still injured for game week 34, I've only got two. Sorry, I will only have two United players, so De Gea and Martinelli will be going up to Rashford. That leaves me one more Manchester United spot, which can be a straight switch of RK across to Luke Shaw, who is back and playing in that Manchester United defensive line, currently playing centre-back. Played this morning with Lindelof as a centre-back partnership, which is a much better partnership than sitting next to Harry Maguire. But I'd be more than happy to jump on Luke Shaw there, because United have a kind run of fixtures, a couple of doubles still to play, and Shaw does seem to do pretty well on the bonus points from that centre-back position when United do manage to pick up a clean sheet. So across the middle of the park, I've got a massive benching dilemma this week. We've got Martinelli away to Man City. Now he is potentially my transfer out this game week. We will talk through that in a minute. I've got Salah away to West Ham. Now I currently have him down as captain, and we'll discuss the captaincy in a little bit too. I've decided to start my two Brighton midfielders of McAllister and March, both away to Nottingham Forest, and that means that I'm actually benching Grealish at home to Arsenal in the top of the table clash this week. That's a bit of a hard decision. Grealish has been playing quite well. He's been very involved, coming in off the left flank, and to be fair, Arsenal can completely be got at. Over the last 3 games, Arsenal have had 3 back-to-back high-scoring draws. They've conceded 7 goals in 3 games, and that is against Southampton, West Ham and Liverpool. So that's a lot of goals to be shipping, especially when you're currently first in the league. It looks like the pressure is potentially getting to them. Maybe a little bit of squad depth issues there too. But that is actually a terrible run of results leading into a very important match in a top of the table clash. Now, I'm not at all worried about Martinelli. I think Martinelli has been playing very well, and so I would be more than happy to play him in the City game. However, with Spurs looking defensively horrible, Rashford looking like he's back in fitness, and looks like I'm probably going to be bringing Rashford in for Martinelli as my one free transfer this week, and we're just going to be swerving pretty much every asset in this Man City Arsenal tie apart from Haaland up front. Now, I'm still not completely sold on this. It's a short turnaround, so the deadline is in 2 days' time, so I do have to make these decisions soon. But I think probably going Rashford over Martinelli is a bit of an EO play as well as a fixture play here. So Martinelli is owned by 45% of the game still, which is actually a lot higher than I thought it would be. I thought it would probably be somewhere down around somewhere in the 30s. So it's almost owned by half of the game, which is quite a lot. His recent run of returns has been 9, 5, 13, 5, 7, 8. I mean, very consistent returns from Martinelli. Can he do it against Man City? Well, yes, of course he can. Arsenal are a very fluent attacking side. But what is the ceiling looking like for Martinelli? I wouldn't expect him to go mental in this game and score 2, 3, 4 goals or get multiple returns here, whereas I think Rashford could come away with multiple returns in that Spurs game, especially considering what Newcastle just did to them this morning. And across the forward line, I've got Haaland up front with the vice captaincy currently at home to Arsenal. We have Harry Kane at home to Manchester United. Obviously, Spurs haven't been performing very well of late, but Harry Kane has still managed to be pulling in return. So, loss against Newcastle, he scored 6 points. The loss against Bournemouth, he only got 2 points. The win against Brighton, he got 9. The 1-1 draw against Everton, he picked up 7. 3-3 draw against Southampton, he picked up 6. And then the 3-1 win over Nottingham Forest saw him come away with his double-figure return of 13 points. Harry Kane is still remaining incredibly consistent, which is why I just want to leave him in my team for the rest of the season and just let him continue ticking along up front. However, with no money in the bank, he is the main make way in order to potentially upgrade elsewhere in my squad. I do have some other alternatives, like potentially a downgrade of Nathan Ake in order to get a little bit more funds to potentially deal with someone like Steele if he doesn't start in game week 33. But Steele is so cheap, down at 3.9 million, that getting up to any doubling keeper in game week 34, where I'm for a team where I'm not already maxed out on 3 of their players, is probably going to be about a 0.5 million jump there or thereabouts, which is actually quite a lot of money at this point in time. Hopefully we don't need to make that transfer and Jason Steele just plays in this fixture this week away to Nottingham Forest. And then my final man up front is Alexander Isak, who came away with a monster haul in the, or not a monster haul, but a double-digit return in the 6-1 demolition of Tottenham this morning, scoring 2 goals and being pulled off at the 65-minute mark for Callum Wilson, who came on and scored himself. But I'm very happy to have Alexander Isak in the team for his fixture away to Everton, who are looking a little bit shaky currently, or have been for a little while. On the bench, as I said, De Gea is currently sitting there on the bench, who will come in for Steele if he is, well, if he has been dropped or if he is not quite back from that slight injury, which has managed to keep him out for a couple of games already, so I don't know how slight that injury is. Grealish is first bench, Nathan Ake is second bench, and Kurt Zouma third bench against Liverpool at home. He is simply sitting there for that game week 34 double of Crystal Palace and Man City in order to bench boost. So I've already touched on it a little bit. My transfer this week is most likely going to be Martinelli out to Rashford. Right, so Martinelli is looking amazingly good. He's been involved in everything that Arsenal is doing on the front foot, coming into the attack. I've made this mistake earlier in the season as well. I had Martinelli in my squad and I got rid of him when Arsenal's fixtures turned in about game week 9 or 10, very early on in the season. Martinelli absolutely punished me throughout that period. So there is a little bit of apprehension in order to sell him, because I do remember what happened last time. But considering the double game weeks that are coming up, United are now out of Europa, having lost to Sevilla in that second leg, 3-0. They have got no other fixtures to contend with apart from the FA Cup final, the first ever Manchester derby in an FA Cup final, but that game will not be played until about 5 or so days after game week 38 is completed, and so Manchester United only have the Premier League to focus on, which is the same as Arsenal, but Manchester United do have those 2 doubles coming up in game week 34 and 37. So just for the run of fixtures and the ease of opponents, Arsenal's fixtures definitely turn as of this week. So away to Man City, toughest game that they're going to have. They're then at home to Chelsea. Chelsea haven't been playing amazing lately. it's a little bit of an understatement. So Arsenal can seriously do the damage against Chelsea. Newcastle away is a very tough game. Newcastle have been doing really well for a long period of time, apart from that little blip against Aston Villa last week where they decided that they just did not want to defend at all or pick up the main man, Ollie Watkins. It looks like they sorted that out for the fixture against Spurs though, and so Newcastle are looking like the Newcastle that they have been for the most of the season, so we'll just count that Aston Villa game as a bit of a blip. And then they run into Brighton at home, which is not at all an easy fixture either. It's definitely winnable for Arsenal, but Brighton have been playing some pretty sexy football for quite a while. I love what De Zerbi has done with the team, and considering the run of results that Arsenal have just posted with a relatively easy run of fixtures, they now turn into some tougher fixtures, and I'm wondering if that pressure is just mounting a bit too much. Potentially there's a little bit of implosion going on there, and to be fair, Arteta is one of the most animated people on the pitch. He seems to be a bit over-exaggerating in a lot of things that are going on, especially when things are not working well for him, and that will not at all be helping his team when they are somewhat wobbling in the final run of fixtures for that title race. Of course, the last two games in the season for Arsenal are Nottingham Forest away and Wolves at home. That game week and game week 37 though is a double, and so I don't know how many people will be jumping on Arsenal assets for that game week 37. Most people will be looking at trying to purchase some sort of double game weeker, and Wolves to end off the season is a pretty good fixture for Arsenal. But if I do sell Martinelli this week, I'm almost certainly not buying him back, probably for the remainder of the season, unless there are some sort of serious injuries about in the rest of my team. So looks like Martinelli out for Rashford in to come in and play an away fixture against a Spurs team who have just sunk or conceded 5 goals in the first half of that match in Newcastle. I heard the commentator say that no Premier League team has conceded 6 in the first half of a match, and they came very close to doing that. Those 5 goals, I think it was already 3-0 at like the 20-minute mark or something. It was unreal scenes watching that. Again, super stoked that Kane scored that only solo goal. And so the last main point of contention for game week 33 is the captaincy. Now, if I had to bet on what sort of EO that Haaland will have this week, it is going to be incredibly high. He's still owned by 77.3% of the game, so we'll just round it up to 80% of all players, and you would imagine that a fair chunk of them will be captaining Haaland at home to Arsenal this week. Now, in terms of the captaincy and how I see this game going is I do think City are going to win this game. I do not think it's going to be an absolute drubbing. Arsenal are not going to implode in this game. If they do concede a goal or two, they are going to knuckle down and play their hearts out, as they have done so in the other fixtures, like the game just gone against Southampton, where they were down 3-1 with about 10 or 15 minutes to go and managed to pull it back to 3-3. So they will play till the final whistle. They will not implode. So I do not suspect that Man City are going to go and do more than 3 goals here. I think City may have the potential of scoring 3. There's probably a high likelihood that they'll score a couple, considering what has been happening with the Arsenal defence. But I don't think it's going to be, like 4 or 5 or any more, and I don't think it's going to be an absolute drubbling. I think it's going to be quite a close end-to-end fixture. It should be a very entertaining game of football to watch. Two very attacking teams. Arsenal will be looking to play on the counter, with Man City trying to hold on to as much possession as possible. And in those types of games, I don't know what Haaland's ceiling is like. Now, obviously, this is the best striker that the Premier League has ever seen, so if any man can do it, of course Haaland can, and I'm not saying that at all. I would not at all be surprised if Haaland came away with 2 or 3 goals in this game, if it was 2 or 3 goals scored for Man City. But I think it's just going to be a lot tighter than what we imagine. It's almost like it's a bit of a final, this game, and in those final matches you often find it's like a 1 or 2 goal type affair. So with Liverpool playing away to West Ham, now West Ham are no pushovers, it is a away game, but Salah has been on form as of late. He's scored 4 goals in the last 3 games, coming away with scores of 7, 14 and 5 against Nottingham Forest, Leeds and Arsenal. He got nothing against Chelsea as he was on the bench and only came on for the last 25 minutes, but then he scored again in the game against City, and in the game prior to that was the Bournemouth 1-0 loss before the 21-point haul and the 7-0 demolition of Manchester United. So Salah has pedigree, obviously, in FPL. We're currently not sure if he's still on penalties, although I suspect he probably still is. That probably wouldn't change my captaincy decision too much. It's more about, I guess it's just more about the higher ceiling. I think Liverpool have a better shot at scoring 3, 4, 5 goals against West Ham, although I still think that is probably unlikely in this fixture, as opposed to Haaland. And with the I have to make some EO plays here. So in the gameweek 32 free hit, my EO play was to go against Trippier and stick with Kane, which worked out okay. I got 4 points gained from that. It's not a huge swing. It is 4 points in the bank, which is great. But if Haaland blanks in this Arsenal game and Salah comes away with 2 goals, that could actually be quite a massive swing with the captaincy. And if City were going to be kept, well, if Haaland was going to be kept scoreless in any fixture, you would think that it would probably be a game like the one that they have facing this week. So I think most people will be captaining Haaland. His EO is probably going to be up somewhere around about 120% across the game, somewhere in that vicinity. Obviously, if every man that owned Haaland captained him, he would be sitting at 154% EO, plus whatever triple captains that I doubt would pull the trigger in this game. So we're looking at it like 120% EO. Can Haaland blank, and can Salah come away with a haul against West Ham away? I think that's the gamble I'm probably going to end up running with, considering the rest of my team is relatively strong. Brighton with the easy fixture away to Nottingham Forest, my triple Newcastle with an easy game on paper away to Everton. Kane coming up against a depleted Manchester United. I think it might be the week for me to actually go against Haaland and see if we can steal a march on the competition with going against Haaland. So also on top of this, I should note that probably most teams out there have a 2 premium setup, which is currently consisting of Haaland and Kane. Most managers out there won't have Salah in their teams this week. Salah is currently only owned by 32% of the game. There will be a lot of dead teams as part of that 32%, and so active managers, I suspect that Salah's ownership is actually quite low, and so captaining a very low EO player that has the pedigree to score 2 or more goals, I mean, if he came away with a hat-trick in this match and Haaland blank, this would be an absolute win, considering most people won't even have Salah, so they won't even be covering the non-captaincy points. It will just be pure gain, and so I think that's what I will probably end up running with the deadline. It is the deadline. So it's 5 a.m. in New Zealand on the 26th, which is a Wednesday, so that's about Tuesday, 5 or 6 p.m. in the UK. As you can tell, being in New Zealand sucks for deadlines and for actually watching football, because most of the matches are played between 1 and 4 a.m. in New Zealand. Sometimes you actually pick up a deadline which is in the middle of the night. That's just what we have to deal with over here. Just pick up the transfer planner. I'll put in my proposed move just to show the issues with my bench boost in game week 34. Now this was the risk I was running by pulling my wildcard forward into game week 31 as opposed to waiting to game week 33, which is this game week. Now pulling it forward, obviously I jumped on Salah for his return against Leeds, which was great, so the early wildcard has already earned me points over and above what my old team would have had, and so I may have to look at spending a couple of those points in order to shore up the bench to pull this bench boost in game week 34. So as it stands, Rashford in this week means I will only have one free transfer in game week 34, and this is how the team lines up. I just put the single game weekers on the bench, and you'll see that I've got 11 double game weekers, including Steele, who currently isn't playing, so I may have an issue with Steele. Nathan Ake is currently injured, and everyone else at the moment looks pretty assured of starts. Grealish is still starting as far as we know. Whether or not he's still starting in game week 34 is a bit up in the air. Foden is due back some point around about game week 34. We will be looking at that in the game week 34 video. We don't need to take care of that this week, but he is also a slight doubt. So for my bench boost, we'll be looking at double United of Rashford and De Gea at home to Aston Villa and Brighton away. We've got Kurt Zuma away to Crystal Palace and away to Man City. Nathan Ake, who is currently 50% chance of playing with a hamstring injury, with Grealish and Haaland all against Fulham away and West Ham at home. Obviously Haaland will be captain in that game week. And then my double Liverpool of Salah and Kanate, both with two home fixtures, at home to Tottenham and at home to Fulham in game week 34. Triple Brighton of Steele, McAllister and March for their two home games against Wolves and Manchester United. And then my single game weekers of Kane up front away to Liverpool, and my triple Newcastle all playing Southampton at home, and that is Isak, Botman and Trippier all sitting on the bench with one free transfer. Now if Ake is injured or in doubt, he is a simple swap across to Luke Shaw. That would be my one free transfer. And then I may potentially look at, if Steele is fine and actually playing, I may look at a Kane down to a Jota for a 1 week punt for a 4-point hit to jump on that Tottenham and Fulham double for Liverpool for my final Liverpool spot, and then to bring Harry Kane straight back in game week 35 for his home fixture against Crystal Palace. However, if Steele is out, I have to replace him in order to pull this bench boost, because the goalkeeper is actually one of the key spots on the bench boost chip, and so I may not be able to go Ake to Shaw because Ake is 5.1 million, I believe. Still, is he still 5.1? Yeah, 5.1. Shaw is probably still at 5.1. I doubt he's dropped yet, so 5.1. So that would be a like-for-like transfer, which only leaves me 0.2 million in the bank, which means I could only upgrade Steele to a goalkeeper of 4.1 million. I don't believe that there are any goalkeepers at 4.1 million with a double that I would like to bring in order to bench boost. And so Ake may have to go down to someone else. Maybe a Lindelof if he's cheap enough. God, now this is really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Lindelof, 4.1 million. That would give me enough funds to go Ake to Lindelof and then Steele up to a better double game week keeper. The problem is it's probably going to be someone like Fabianski. Potentially, I could also jump across to Sanchez, I guess, but then I run into the problem of Steele could come straight back in for Sanchez and he could miss one of those two fixtures for Wolves and Manchester United. So the bench boost is a little bit shaky, having had pulled the wild card a couple of game weeks earlier. We knew that risk when we were doing it, and just made the mind up that if I pull the wild card forward, hopefully I build up enough additional points in that game week that I can spend 4 or maybe even have to spend 8 of those points in game week 34 in order to get out a strong looking bench boost. We pulled in more than enough points in game week 31 in order to do that, but obviously we do not want to be taking hits if we can at all avoid it. So that's the video for today. It's a very quick turnaround until the deadline for game week 33. So if you have made it this far through the video, please do consider giving it a like. And if you are new around here and want to be notified about more FPL content coming your way, hit that big red subscribe button and the bell icon and to be notified about more releases coming to you soon. And until next time, I will catch you again shortly. Cheers.